The regime has been the most significant obstacle to Middle East peace over the past 3 decades. I have emphasized many times since 2 decades ago that the regime's warmongering in the region is 100 times more dangerous than its nuclear program. The real geopolitical battle now is between the Iranian regime and the Iranian people and their organized resistance movement, the NCRI. And our own security and economic interest, indeed that of the entire West, is in the Iranian people and the NCRI prevailing in that struggle. Therefore, the solution is before us. It's time to act to ensure that that victory comes sooner rather than later. We don't need to engage militarily. We need to recognize the NCRI and endorse its democratic platform and back the Iranian people in their fight for a democratic republic and indeed for justice.
There is, however, a beacon of hope. The National Council of Resistance of Iran, a democratic resistance movement working tirelessly for the Iranian people's aspiration for freedom and democracy. The NCRI, along with its resistance units, has presented what is to me a credible and democratic alternative. And it is encapsulated, and we're delighted to listen to Madam Rajab. It's encapsulated in this 10-point platform for free Iran, gaining support from global leaders and policy makers around the world.
Tehran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei knows that without foreign meddling, his increasingly fragile and vulnerable regime cannot survive another uprising like those in 2022, 2019, 2018 and 2017. The Middle East is in turmoil, largely fueled by the warmongering dictatorship ruling Iran. We must call, as we have, and all MPs have done the same, for the proscription of the Revolutionary Guards, the IRGC, as a terrorist organisation, and shut down the regime's embassies, expel its agents and its spies, support the Iranian people's struggle for freedom, for liberty, for true democracy. In conclusion, the path to peace and stability in the Middle East and beyond lies in confronting the clerical regime's belligerence head on.
The IRGC in all its activities, as many have said, is a terrorist organisation. It's not political opinion, it is fact. The evidence also all supports this assertion. The UK must act. We saw last week the German security services raiding a number of institutions and centres affiliated to the Iranian regime and Hezbollah across 7 states. They are now conducting an investigation. We too need to act to curtail the activities of these people in our country and to investigate what is happening. Most importantly, we all know the actual hard, dangerous and must be terrifying work to defeat Iran's regime's terrorism and warmongering is done by the people of Iran and the Iranian resistance movement, led by Madam Rajab. They are fighting to end the totalitarian theocratic rule in Iran and secure a free republic governed of, by and for the people. The UK should recognise the Iranian people's right to take their country back from this brutal dictatorship.
There's a tendency, I know, to think that now the world has another competing problem. The fighting in Gaza, followed by the war in Ukraine, the difficulties with the arming of North Korea, the civil war in Yemen. But today, at least in this room and among us, we can see that there is a common thread. There is no resolution in the problem of Palestine. There is no likely scenario to a two-state solution that can end this long impasse and this terrible decades-long struggle, any more than there's likely a resolution in Ukraine without dealing with the problem of the regime in Tehran. Indeed, I would argue that it is likely that we would never be in this situation in the Middle East. The Oslo Accords might have succeeded. We might have reached a two-state solution if not a single international player saw its interest that the conflict continue and used its proxies in Hezbollah and later in Hamas to prolong the conflict. And of course, that's exactly what is now happening in the Ukraine, with Iran becoming the principal supplier of weaponry as the Russian stockpiles have been depleted.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Hamas-Israel hostage crisis is the 5th hostage crisis this year, masterminded by the lawless regime in Tehran. And here is where the 44-year war against the MEK and the National Council of Resistance of Iran becomes not only relevant, but central to understanding this crisis. We who know Madame Rajavi and support her 10-point plan for the future of Iran understand that for the Iranian people and the organized resistance, the major issue is achieving freedom from tyranny for the Iranian people. For the clerics ruling Iran, the NCRI represents the one and only threat that they cannot survive, a group of educated Iranian Muslims who reject the form of Islam at the heart of the regime's power. The MEK and NCRI have always said that Islam means freedom. Women can be good Muslims and have full political and legal rights, including in marriage and employment. They wear the headscarf voluntarily as a personal act of piety. The women and girls of Iran understand this well and are in open revolt against the regime. The regime has failed to govern in every other respect. Iran's currency has lost nearly half its value in the past decade.
That is an international crime as well as a national crime. But the source of this rests in Tehran itself, with the regime's own leaders. And I hope that the call from us here today to the British government and to European governments is to be clear and make it clear that they need to prescribe the Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organisation, as the main instrument of the regime's repression, its terrorism, and indeed of its continued attempt at establishing a nuclear program.
We have not declared the Iranian regime a terrorist organisation. We just desperately need to get on with that as a matter of urgency. For all sorts of reasons, but in part to support the incredibly brave Madame Rajavi. I think she's an extraordinary leader of the opposition in Iran. How she survives, I can't imagine, when they seem to kill women all over the country simply for not getting their headscarf on correctly.
Against it. It is a danger to people in our own country, our own soil. It's a particular danger, obviously, to the Iranians in Iran, and I wish them every success with the resistance. I have been always impressed with the good efforts of the NRCI in promoting a free, secular, democratic Iran, and I wish you every success.
The UK must move ahead and prescribe the IRGC to deny it the resources and funds it needs to export terrorism, and to sustain and intensify the domestic repression. Such a decision will also make it a clear criminal offence to support and work with the IRGC in the UK, which is long overdue, and we have many agents of the IRGC operating in the UK. Also, I agree with Madame Rajavi and urge the government to work with allies and partners to place the clerical regime under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter as a threat to world peace and security. The international community must accept and acknowledge this truth so they can focus on supporting the solution, which the only solution here is the democratic alternative as presented by the NCRI and Mariam Rajavi. It then follows that the UK should lead the international community in cutting all diplomatic ties with the Iranian regime, close the embassy until such time as the regime ends its terrorism, warmongering, hostage-taking diplomacy, Now, contrary to the lies and deception spread by the regime's influence network, an Iranian solution and viable democratic alternative to the regime's warmongering does exist. It is the organised resistance of movement with its resistance units across Iran, presented by the NCRI and Madame Rajavi. The sooner the UK recognises and endorses this Iranian popular alternative, the more effective will be our policy responses to counter the regime's warmongering and terrorism.
I'm very disturbed when I look at the statistics on executions and what's happened on various occasions through the last N years to the people. They don't want, I know, military intervention from the West. What they want is our support, and they want to be able to have a democratic regime led so ably by Miriam Rajavi. And so I think we all send every good wish. But I think the main thing that I would like to say is we have to put pressure on our own British government to please get rid of the regime of the Revolutionary Guard, which is doing I always get digits wrong, but we get the regime, the terrorist regime, absolutely banned, and everything we can to stop them.